Welcome everyone to the HAIMS Bulk Scanning Medical Records video tutorial. In this video, you will learn how to bulk scan multiple documents into the HAIMS application. We're going to begin with a brief PowerPoint presentation. It's only a few slides, so I'm not going to have death by PowerPoint for everyone. Just ask that you mute your cell phone. I do want you to ask questions, so as I go through this tutorial, if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me at any time. And I will be working from our training database, and all of the data, the names, the information that you will see is completely fictitious. So any similarity to any person that may be living or dead is going to be a coincidence. There is an interim guidance for the service treatment record for the use of HAIMS. It came out around July of 2013. And basically what that says is that the military wants to try and make sure that the service treatment record is put into a digital format. Currently today, the process is that we print. We print large amounts of paper and we mail those off to a location to where the service person may have either separated or retired. And that process takes a long time. Could take anywhere from 400 to 600 days. With the implementation of the HAIMS application, we will now be able to actually scan those service treatment records right into the HAIMS application, which we will demonstrate here in a little while. The interim guidance itself, it's a couple of documents. If you check with your local administrator at your facility, it may actually be loaded on your shared drive. So feel free to read both those documents. In the interim guidance, it lists mandatory fields which are system enforced when we upload documents into the HAIMS application. As you can see from this slide, there are 4 mandatory fields. You must have the patient's name, the author's name, which is the person that authors the document that you're about to upload, the type of document that you are going to ingest into the HAIMS application, and then the date that the document was created. There are also recommended fields, which are going to be business process enforced from your location. There are a total of 18 different metadata fields that you can use when uploading a document into the HAIMS application. A few of them are listed here: practice setting, specialty, the clinic, of course your installation or your facility. Again, those are not required, but they are recommended. In the service treatment record, there is also a drop-down in the document type that lists the service treatment record for ALTA, for the medical records part 1 through 4, as well as the dental 1, 2, and 3, and 4. It's very similar to what you see today, so if you do work in the medical records department, you're probably used to seeing the STR for ALTA. It's the same scenario. Nothing's changed in HAIMS. There are a few processing centers that are up and running as of today. The Army and the Air Force, they have a processing center in San Antonio where service treatment records are being shipped to, and then someone there is actually digitizing those documents, scanning them, and uploading them into the HAIMS application. The Navy is about to start their processing center in Chantilly, Virginia, which then I believe is going to be moved over into St. Louis, Missouri. You can see here on this slide there are some point of contact information down below for the Army and the Air Force and the Navy. For the clear and legible reports, so those folks that may work in referral management, for example, currently today when you receive a document from an offsite provider, those documents, that information is being copy and pasted into the ALTA clinical note or ad note. As you can see from the second bullet point here, starting January 1st of 2014, no longer are the service centers taking and cutting and pasting that information. They now will be taking those documents and uploading them or ingesting them directly into the HAIMS application. So you will receive guidance from your command as to when you will stop cutting and pasting and putting into ALTA and start uploading those documents straight into the HAIMS application. So the purpose of HAIMS is to conduct a training to support accelerated deployment. If you were around when Alta was deployed, that deployment, worldwide deployment, took over 3 years to deploy. For the HAIMS application, it's going to be deployed worldwide in around 15 months, which is very accelerated. What is the goal? Well, the goal is to become paperless. Now, we all know we're never going to be a complete paperless society. We're going to still need paper. However, with the HAIMS application, you're going to have the ability to take those documents, convert them into an electronic format, so make them digital, so then they can be uploaded right into the HAIMS application. So as I keep talking about HAIMS, think of the HAIMS application as a large repository, a digital repository, where we can take large amounts of paper, scan them in, and upload them into the large repository. It will support the workflow for the VA and the Veterans Benefits Determination. Again, I mentioned that that process takes anywhere from 400 to 600 days. Well, imagine how we will be able to decrease that once all of those documents no longer need to be printed and mailed. If we can import them digitally right into the HAIMS application, they can be accessible from anywhere in the world as long as you have a HAIMS account. Theater images are available. Full deployment should occur by June of 2014, and the enterprise sharing capability is already taking place. So what is the scope? The scope is to enhance global awareness for the healthcare provider. Now, the provider, that term in this slide, really refers to all of the users that touch the electronic record. So if you're a tech or if you're a provider, maybe you're a nurse practitioner, you are going to be able to affect treatment care because you will have the ability to upload information into the HAIMS application. It provides scanning and importing capability of those artifacts from a local drive for each HAIMS user. Now, our focus today is going to be on the third bullet point, which is bulk scanning. With bulk scanning, you have the ability to take large amounts of paper, whether it's 10 pages or 200 pages, and you can scan all of that into the HAIMS application at one time. So what does HAIMS stand for? As you can see here, it says Health Artifact and Image Management Solution. Talks about artifacts and images. If you hear me mention the word artifact or image or asset, I'm specifically talking about the documents that we are uploading into the HAIMS application. You'll notice the first bullet point here says radiographic images, X-rays, CTs. Those types of images are automatically loaded into the HAIMS application. So once the radiologist generates the report through CHCS, usually within a short time, those images are going to be viewable anywhere in the world as long as you have a HAIMS account. Everything else that's a document or a photograph or a WAV file, even a video file, all of those types of electronic documents we will upload into the HAIMS system and fill out the metadata information, which you will see when we get into the bulk scanning class. Any questions so far on this slide right here? Okay, great. So HAIMS was created to manage the health artifacts for the military health system. There are two different methods that we can use to access the HAIMS application. We can access it from the standalone mode, which is simply a web URL, and that is what we will focus on in our bulk scanning tutorial today. And the second method will be from within Alta, which we call the embedded mode. HAIMS will interface with several types of external systems. Of course, it does talk with Alta. It'll also talk with the BHIE, which is the Bidirectional Health Information Exchange. And through that BHE, that is how we will have the ability as HAIMS users to search for VA documents that have been uploaded into their VISTA system. They, in turn, will have the ability to see the documents that we upload into our HAIMS system. And that's basically done through that Bidirectional Health Information Exchange. The PACS, or the Picture Archiving and Communication System, which are your radiographs, again, does not matter where the radiograph was taken. Once that report's generated, that radiograph will automatically be loaded into the HAIMS application, and it's viewable anywhere in the world. HAIMS is a large repository. Think of it like a large filing cabinet. If you can take a document and get it into an electronic digital format, you can then upload it right into the HAIMS application. It will provide access to those X-rays regardless of where they were generated, and it does allow the VA and the DoD clinicians to see each other's information. So this is a huge breakthrough approach for HAIMS. It's going to ensure seamless access for the clinicians throughout the military health system. And with HAIMS, the continuity of care means that the right information is available at the right time. That really could mean saving a life. When you have instant access to information, it really could mean saving a life for someone. There are a few known functionality issues that are being looked at today. One is when we open up the DICOM image or the radiograph. If it's a very large file with multiple slices, if it has multiple X-ray images, it may take a little while to open up. And that's dependent upon the speed of the internet at your facility. Under account synchronization, when you create a HAIMS account, it's important that you know your ALTA username and password. So as long as you know those, you should be fine. In some instances, HAIMS is a little finicky with ALTA passwords, so you may be asked by your system administrator or your ALTA administrator to change your ALTA password in order to create a HAIMS account. So our course objectives today, we are going to log into the standalone bulk scanning for HAIMS. We're going to demonstrate how to create and print a ticket or a fax cover sheet. We're going to show how to bulk scan multiple pages at one time and then edit and validate those pages before we ingest them into the HAIMS application. So in summary, we will log into the application, navigate through it, and we're going to focus today on the medical records portion. There are 3 different roles when we talk about medical records bulk scanning. There's the ticket creator role, which would be the person that creates the cover sheet. There is the validator, which is the person who goes into the validation queue and verifies that all of the pages have been scanned in, nothing's missing, that they are in order, and that they are clear and legible. And then, of course, we have the medical records administrator. So that's it for the slide presentation. Do we have any questions from anyone on the phone? Great. There are a few resources at your disposal. You'll notice here the first 2, Mr. Ronald Anderson and Ms. Delos Clem. They are someone that you can reach out to. And then, of course, you've got some folks from Leidos. For your service representatives, depending upon which service you are in, these are your service reps that you could contact if you had questions pertaining to the HAIMS application. You'll notice that there's a KSS link here, which is a knowledge sharing system. If you choose to go to the KSS and create your own account, you can, from that site, ask questions about HAIMS, and a trainer will reply back to your email and answer your questions for you. Under MHS Learn, there is a link in the MHS Learn for you to go out and view computer-based trainings. So what we are going to talk about today is just one facet of the HAIMS application. It's the bulk scanning med records. And if you would like to get a refresher, you literally could go out to MHS, go to one of the computer-based trainings, and you could watch short video clips about how to upload a document, for example, into the HAIMS application. So that concludes the PowerPoint presentation. I hope that wasn't too long. And now we are going to go ahead and log in to the HAIMS standalone for bulk scanning. You may or may not see an icon on your desktop that looks like this. You simply double-click, accept on the DoD banner. For those of you that are watching this video, you will simply log in using your CAT card right here. Once your account has been created, in order to log in, you simply click this button right here that says log in using your CAT card. From there, you choose your email certificate, and it may or may not prompt you to enter your CAC PIN. From there, it automatically logs you in. Since I'm using our training system, I have to actually manually log in. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see this. I have purposely logged in as the HAIMS system administrator simply to show that there are multiple tabs that you can see from our HAIMS dashboard. What you are looking at is the HAIMS standalone dashboard. The tabs that you see at the top of the page here, that is determined by your role. So if you are simply a ticket creator, you may only see 2 or 3 tabs. If you are a medical records administrator, you may see more than 3 tabs. But for our class today, our focus is on bulk scanning. So you take your mouse and you simply hover over the tab here at the top that says bulk scan, and you click on network. Now in the training system, it will automatically log me in. In the live environment, you will need to type in your username and password that will be created for you by your system administrator. So they will give you your username and password information to log in. Once I click bulk scan network, I would then have to log in one more time. And the format would be HAIMS, H-A-I-M-S, /, and then your username. And then below that you would put in your password.
I have a question on that. That password, is that going to expire? Am I going to be notified that my password is going to expire?
That is a great question. The question by the student was, will the password expire when you log into the standalone for bulk scanning? And the answer is yes, it will. Every 59 days, you would need to reset your password. And from the login screen, there was a button that said change password. You would simply click that prior to the 60th day, and you would go in and change your password. If by chance, maybe you go TDY, and by the time you come back, it's beyond the 60th day, the HAIMS system administrator does have the ability to reset that password for you. So that's a very good question. Okay, so what do we see? As soon as I log in, it will take me right to the Create Ticket screen. Again, you think of a ticket as a fax cover sheet. Prior to uploading documents into the HAIMS application, you need to fill out a cover sheet so that the system knows which patient it is that you're going to associate all of these documents to. Up here at the top left of the screen, you'll see we have 2 tabs. One that says My Tickets and one that says All Tickets. If you're on the My Tickets tab, that will display all of the tickets or fax cover sheets that you, the user, create. Under the All Tickets tab, this will display all of the tickets that have been created for your regional HAIR. You may, depending upon what facility you're at, there are multiple facilities that are connected to one central HAIR or one regional HAIR, and you may see tickets from another user. So I'm going to click back on the My Tickets tab, talk a little bit about the screen itself. You'll notice there's a printer icon here that says Print Tickets. Of course, if I check mark my ticket and hit print, it will print the ticket. Delete Tickets will allow me to delete my tickets if I choose. Show Search Bar will allow me to search for specific tickets. Find Ticket is another Boolean search that allows me to search for a specific ticket. And Save as New View allows me to customize what I'm looking at. We currently have 5 different columns on this screen right now. But if I come down to the bottom left of the screen, you'll notice there is the word column. If I click on it, this will allow me to add or remove columns from my own personal view. So ticket creator name is not listed. If I wanted to add that to my view, I simply click on the plus which will then move it over to the left. And if I wanted to rearrange it, maybe I want the creator name first, I can drag it up to the top. It'll be the first column. And I choose OK. Now, as you can see, we have six columns now. If this is a view that I want to save, I would simply click on Save as New View. I would give it a label. I'll call it Test, hit Submit, and you'll notice that I'm going to have a whole new tab up at the top of the screen. And you can save as many different views as you choose. It's really your choice. If after time you decide you don't need those views any longer, you want to remove it, you simply click the X and it will remove that tab. Yes, I am sure I want to delete it. Down at the bottom left, you'll notice it looks like two arrows that are chasing each other. As I hover over it, you see a box pops up and it says Reload Grid. That is sort of a refresh for this screen. It will reload your grid. So how do we actually create the ticket? You'll notice over on the right side, there's a tab that says Create Ticket. Below it, it says Save the Ticket or Save and Print Your Ticket. The first box that you see, the first metadata field, is the ticket expiration date. That date will default 7 days from today. So if, for example, I created a ticket today, if I worked in the emergency room and I fill out a lot of the SF558 emergency room forms, and I no longer needed to keep that form after 7 days, then I would just let the default date be 18 April. You can change that ticket expiration date by simply clicking on the calendar, and I can change the date. I can make it further in the future if I choose. So I could go 2 years out, for example, and pick April 6th. Now what that would do is that will not allow my ticket to expire until April 6th of 2016. So you may ask yourself, why would I want to create a ticket that doesn't expire for 2 years? Well, you may work in a clinic where the forms that you work with are the same forms over and over and over. If that's the case and you're always importing the same documents over and over and over, I could create a ticket that does not expire for 2 years, and I could use it over and over and over so that I don't have to go into the system and create a brand new ticket every time I want to scan something into the HAIMS application. Any questions on that ticket part? And I know sometimes it's a little confusing. Do I have any questions? Okay, great. So we're going to create a ticket that doesn't expire until April 6, 2016. Under the patient name, if I click inside the box, I will get a pop-up. From here, I have the ability to search for a patient. So I will search for HAIMS XXX and first name 5, F-I-V-E. Click on my search, and I'm going to widen my column so I can see the name by simply just dragging it over. And there's HAIMS XXX5. You simply click once on the blue hyperlink and it will load that patient into the box. Now, one nice feature with HAIMS, you can hover over many of the different boxes from within the application and you'll see a pop-up box. It's a very quick, easy way for you to reference back and make sure that you pick the correct patient. If I accidentally click an incorrect patient, I simply click the red X, which will clear out my patient, click back in the patient box, and I can go back in and search for the correct patient. But I'm going to go ahead and choose HAIMS XXX5. Now, the author... I
have a question about search, please.
A question?
Can you now search by the ID number, sir?
The question is, can I search by the DOD number? What was it?
Right, the new DOD number. That was a tag.
Correct. Okay, so the new DOD number that is going to be added into the Alta system. Currently, as of right now, I can only search by the patient's name or the Social Security number. However, in a future upgrade to HAIMS, you will be able to search by that number in the future.
Okay, thanks.
Very good question. The next field that we work with is the author name. If you recall back from the slide when I mentioned that there were 4 required fields in order to upload something into the HAIMS application. Since we are not uploading from this screen, we are simply creating a cover sheet, you'll notice there are no mandatory fields. You do have to have at least one label field, either the patient's name or the document type, one or the other. However, the more information that you fill in on your ticket right now, the easier it will become to validate that when we upload the or when we scan the information into the validation queue. So I could save this ticket right now by simply clicking on Save. What that will do is it will save that ticket. You'll notice it put it over here under the My Tickets tab, which it would also be under the All Tickets tab. And you'll notice that it's highlighted, and over on the right side now, I cannot make any changes. Everything is grayed out. I could, if I wanted to, take this one ticket, print it, and if I want to print, I simply click on the print ticket. And this is the screen that you will see. In the middle, I know it looks a little small, but what you're looking at is the actual ticket itself that I would put on top of the documents that I'm about to scan in. And the only metadata field that I have filled out is the patient's name. There's 2 barcodes, one at the top and one at the bottom. So I could print this ticket, put it on top of my documents that I'm about to scan them into the validation queue. Now, once those documents get to the validation queue, which it would be in a single batch, I would then have to fill out the other 3 required metadata fields prior to uploading. So this is not considered a very good ticket because there are not very many fields that are filled out. So I'm going to cancel out of this. Again, here's a shot of what the ticket looks like. If I scroll down the bottom, you can see it. And again, the only thing that's in there is the patient's name. So I'm going to close out this. Uncheck mark this. So let's say, for example, we do work with 558s, and I would like to create a ticket that I could use over and over and over. Again, I may want to change my expiration and make it 2 or 3 or 4 years out into the future so it doesn't expire. Because once a ticket it expires, it automatically deletes itself from your My Tickets screen. So this time I'm going to choose April 9th, 2018. I'll click back in the patient box again. And this time I'll search for a different patient. Oops, sorry. Tab over here. And now I have a bunch of HAIMS with the first name that starts TWE. We will pick HAIMS 25. Under the author name, this is the name of the person that authors the document. Who created the actual document that you're about to upload? So if it's an SF558, maybe it could be the provider that signs off on the form. So if it's a doctor's name, we could type in last name Jones, for example, comma, space, John. If for any reason there is no name on the document, or you just can't read the writing, if it's illegible, you can type in the word unknown here. Under date created, this would be the date of the visit. So if the visit occurred on the 2nd, I simply click on the 2nd. Under the form number box, this is what we call a smart box. If I start typing form numbers in the smart box, it will automatically give me a pop-up and let me choose which form it is I'm looking for. Just about every form that the military uses is in here. So you've got Navy forms, Army forms, you have the Air Force, there's even some Coast Guard, DOD, and standard forms. So if I want to search for the standard form 558, I type SF space 55, and you'll notice there at the bottom is the 558. If you choose a form, a standard form, the document type will automatically be populated for you. So you'll notice that the SF558 Emergency Care and Treatment form automatically populated the document type in CounterNote. If I'm uploading a document and it is not a specific form, you'll notice when I erased the form, it also erased the document type. So if I wanted to upload a legal authorization, a legal consent, for example, I could come down and choose the document type, legal consent. And then down below that, there is a free text title field called document title. This is a very, very important box. It is not a required field. However, in this box, you have the ability to free text and be very, very specific on what the document is that you're about to upload. So if, for example, someone had been in a motor vehicle accident and they went to an off-site chiropractor and the documents were then faxed back to referral management or med records, and someone in the medical records department was going to upload that information into HAIMS, they could be very, very specific about what it is that they were going to upload. So let's say that it was a neck injury. They could actually type in the word neck injury in the document title field. If, for example, it's a form that may or may not be in the form number, the MHS form number box. For example, I will demonstrate SF space 508. You'll notice there is no 508 in my dropdown. However, we all know that the SF508 is a medication reconciliation form. So although I can't choose it here, if I click the number 8, it will not even let me put it in. However, in the document title field, I can type in SF space 508, and I can type in medication reconciliation. What's important to know about all of these fields, these 18 metadata fields, the more information that you fill in, the easier it will be to search for that document in the future. So obviously, the more fields that we have filled in, the easier it is to find the document when it's in the HAIMS application. Again, 4 are required, but the more you fill in, the easier it is to locate that document. Under clinic, for example, we could talk about cardiology. Pick the cardiology clinic. Under installation, let's say it was Eglin. We could type in EGL, and I could choose Eglin Air Force Base as an example. Every MTF or military treatment facility is loaded in the installation facility. I'll type another example, Bethesda. You'll notice there are a lot to choose from under the Bethesda. Again, the more information that we fill out on this cover sheet, not only the easier will it be to upload from the validation queue, but the easier it will be to search for that document in the HAIMS application once we import it. So once I have filled out all of the information that I want to fill out for my ticket, I then click Save Ticket. You'll notice all of the fields over on the right are grayed out. If this is a ticket that I would like to use in the future, because all of the information is the same, the clinic is always the same, the document title is always the same, the document type may always be the same, however, the patient names and the dates may change. I could simply come into my bulk scanning, my tickets tab. What I would do is I would highlight the ticket that I want to copy. I check mark it. I come over to copy existing, which will then allow me to make edits to my metadata information on the right. I'll leave the expiration date. The patient name I will change because it's for a different patient. So we'll just pick 20. In this case, the doctor may still be the same provider. So I'll leave the provider's name, but the date of the visit changed. This visit happened on the 8th, so I change. From there on out, everything else is the same. The facility is the same, the location, everything would be the same. I could simply save this ticket, and now I would have a total of 3 tickets in my Tickets tab. If I choose to print, I check mark the little box on the left, and I hit Print Ticket. Tickets can be a little confusing when you think about it, but if you just think of the ticket as a fax cover sheet, something that you're going to put on top of the document that you're going to scan in that will identify the patient and the information that you're about to upload, the more metadata you fill in on your ticket, the easier it is to validate and upload into the system. I get this question all the time. Can I use more than one ticket at a time? And the answer is yes. You do have the ability to print multiple tickets for multiple patients, stack those on top of each other. So for example, if I had 5 patients, I could create 5 separate tickets. I would stack each ticket on top of each document list, and I could go to my multifunction device and I could scan all 5 patients at one time with 5 tickets. And we will show you how to separate those when we go into the validation queue. I've also been asked, can I take one ticket and scan one ticket for multiple patients? A great example is with internal medicine. I have been at facilities where in the internal med department, they were giving immunization shots. Everything on the actual document itself was the same except for the patient's name and the dates, the date of the visit. And we did create one ticket. We filled out the clinic, we filled out the document title, we talked about what type of shot, was it a flu shot, the provider's name, and we printed that one ticket and we put it on top of 50 different patients, so 50 pieces of paper. And we scanned all 50 pieces of paper at one time into the validation queue. So yes, it can be done. You can do multiple patients with one ticket, but you would have to split them, which we will demonstrate. Or you can do multiple tickets for each patient. In that situation, you would not have to split because the ticket does the splitting for you. Again, now that I have a few tickets, I will click on the Show Search bar. From here, it allows me to search. So if I wanted to search for a specific patient, I could type in 5, F-I-V-E, hit enter, and anything that has 5 in it, it would filter down. So I can backspace out of that, hit enter, and it will reload my grid. Or I could have come down and hit the reload at the bottom left of my screen. So I'll hide my search bar. Find ticket. It's just like a Boolean search. It's a little bit more advanced. You can search by ticket ID, label, creation date. You can have it contains or equal, and then you could type in manually what it is you specifically are looking for. And we've already demonstrated the Save as New View that allows me to customize what it is I'm looking at. You even have the ability, if you click on all tickets and you notice that someone else at a different facility created a very good ticket, If you check mark that ticket, you could then copy it by simply click on copy, change the information that is relevant to your patient and your document, click save ticket, and now you've just created a copy of a ticket that someone else has already created. One thing to remember, if you delete a ticket from the All Tickets tab, it will delete that ticket. If it's your ticket, it will delete it not only from the All Tickets tab, but it will also delete it from the My Tickets tab at the same time. So that's basically how we create the ticket or the cover sheet prior to uploading the information into the HAIMS application. Again, it's important to note that you need to take the time to have proper documentation preparation. Meaning, if you are going to scan, for example, a sleep study, and this sleep study is 47 pages long, but it has staples in it, and it has sticky notes, you would need to make sure that you remove all of the staples, that you've taken the sticky notes and either taped them down or photocopied them. And then you also need to make sure you know how many pages it is that you are scanning in. It's real important to remember, if I'm going to scan 47 pages, I need to have counted that so that when I validate that, I need to make sure all 47 pages are there. It does happen sometimes where the document feeder, your multifunction device, may accidentally scan 2 pages at once, which means you would be missing a document from the 47. So before we go into the validation queue, do we have any questions from anyone on the ticket creation?
Yes, I do have a question, and it goes back to when we conducted the patient search. Where is it pulling that information from? And is there a way for me to check, just like we have an Alta available to us, where we can just search within my local facility, or where is it coming from? Where is it pulling that patient information from?
That is a very good question as well. So if those of you that are on the call did not hear that, student wanted to know, when I do a patient search, so I'm going to clear the patient's name so I can bring up the search box again. When you do a patient search in HAIMS, in the standalone HAIMS, you'll notice that there is no little box down here at the left like there is in Alta that allows me to search my local facility. What that means is I'm going to search worldwide on the HAIMS application, and it will search all records. So if, for example, I wanted to search for Smith, you would not want to click Smith and have first name be John and hit search. What it would do is it would bring back an error message that says there are more than 499 records. You need to refine your search. So there is no button to search locally. And if you are using a name that is a familiar name, it is important that you use some of these other boxes. You can search by date of birth, you can add gender, you can put in the social security numbers, the FMPs, and it is a very good idea that you would do that on a very generic name. That's a good question. Did that answer your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you so much.
Again, just remember, if it's a name that's very familiar, you may want to add more information to enhance your search. So I'm going to close out of this. Okay. So now that we've demonstrated how you can create a ticket, and I've mentioned that if you do not change your expiration date, the default date will be 7 days from today.
Sir, I have a question on that.
Yes.
On your default date, when it expires after 7 days, correct? If you don't change it?
Correct.
Does it delete it out of both my tickets and all tickets?
That's a very good question. So student asked, if you do not change the expiration date, what happens when that 7th date arrives? Will it automatically delete the ticket from both the My Tickets tab and the All Tickets tab? And the answer is yes, it will. Once the ticket date, the expiration date arrives, it will automatically delete that ticket from your My Tickets and your All Tickets at the same time. So if you are going to use a ticket over and over and over again, you will want to change your expiration date into the future. Does that answer that question?
So are you saying we can either take it back if it's deleted?
Is the question, can you get it back once it deletes? I did.
Yeah. If it's deleted or if I let it expire, can I get it back?
No, you will not. Once the ticket, the question that the student asked is, if it expires on its own and it deletes, or even if you delete. For example, I could choose this first ticket and I could say I want to delete it myself, and I just click on delete. It says, are you sure? I say, yes, I want to delete this. Once that's deleted, it's gone. There is no way to get that ticket back. You would have to start over. Good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Good questions. So, what happens once we create our ticket and we put it on top of our stack of documents and we scan it into the validation queue? In order to see that, you simply click on Validation Queue up here at the top of the screen. From here, we also will see 2 tabs. The first tab is My Batches, and the second tab is All Batches. Now, depending upon how your multifunction device is configured, you may or may not be able to see batches that you scanned in yourself under the My Batches tab. Again, it depends on the actual brand, make, and model of the multifunction device that you use. Some scanners have the ability to track that you scanned it, and it would be under My Batches. So if you do scan something in with your CAC, and you do not see it under My Batches, you will want to click on All Batches, and it will be under the All Batches tab. So you'll notice here, under the All Batches tab, at the top of the screen, you see the Delete Batches button, and on the far right, you see Filter Only Available, or Filter Rejected, or No Filter. Those 2 tabs are only viewable to the medical records administrator. If you are just a validator, you would see the Show Search Bar, Find Batch, or Save as New View. But since I'm logged in as an administrator, I wanted to demonstrate that there is a way for the medical records administrator to delete a batch. They would simply check mark the box and click delete, and it would remove that from the queue. And then Filter Only Available. You may want to know, why would there be available batches and rejected batches? And here's why. Sometimes when you go in to validate a batch, you discover that maybe a page is missing. And if you do not have the page that's missing so that you could go back and rescan the batch, you may want to delete it and start over. Or you may ask your medical records administrator to delete it and start over. The second reason that you see rejected, when you print your cover sheet or your ticket with those 2 barcodes, if your printer is running low on toner, there is a good chance that if it prints very lightly, sometimes when you scan that batch into the validation queue, it will automatically be placed into the rejection queue, which As a normal validator's role, you do not have access to the rejected queue, so you would never see it. And it has happened where I've worked with folks that we scanned a 25-page document into the queue. We waited a few minutes for it to show up, and it never showed up. So we scanned it again, and we waited a few more minutes, and it still did not show up. Then we went and got the medical records administrator to log into HAIMS, into the bulk scan. They went in. They had this tab right here. They clicked on Filter Only Rejected. And sure enough, in the rejected queue were the 2 scans that we had scanned. And that happened only because the toner was so light that the multifunction device just did not see, and it wasn't sure where to put it, so it put it automatically in the rejected queue. So again, remember, the tabs that you see at the top of the screen are dependent upon your role. As you can see here under the Filter Only Rejected, we have, if you look at the far right side of my screen, 271 batches in the rejected queue. So I'm going to go back to the My Batches tab. And we'll talk a little bit about this screen. You've got multiple columns again here on the screen that you can drag and drop and move around. And down at the bottom, you've got your columns where you can add or remove columns. These are all of the columns that can be added. If I want to add scanned username, I simply click on the plus and click OK. It will add at the end the scanned user's name. And if I wanted to save this view, I could click Save as New View. I could label it like I did from the Create Ticket tab. And I just simply type in my label and hit Submit. Your Show Search Bar and Find Batch, the same as under the Create Ticket. It will allow me to filter by device or batch name or number of pages. So I'm going to hide my search bar. So let's go back to the All Batches tab. From here, you'll notice that I am under Filter Only Available, and I have 3. One thing that you see that sticks out is this red ball with the white exclamation. If I hover over it, it tells you that this batch has been in the queue for over 7 days. Now, this is different from the Create Ticket. In the Create Ticket tab, after 7 days, your ticket automatically expires. However, in the Validation tab, nothing ever auto-deletes. Now, it lets me know that it's been in here for longer than 7 days, but it will not auto-delete. Your medical records administrator is the only one that can go in and actually delete the entire batch. So as you see here, we've got View. Question?
Sir, I do have a question. When you said that the medical records administrator has the right to delete a batch, now what happens? Can those batches then be retrieved? Is there a trace where we can retrieve those deleted batches?
Very good question again. Student asked, if a medical records administrator deletes a batch, is there a way where we could go back and get it? Is there a way to bring it back into the queue? The answer to that is no. Once something is deleted from either the Create Ticket tab or the Validation queue, once it's deleted, it's gone forever. And the only way that you would be able to upload that into HAIMS, you would have to go grab the documents, either recreate a ticket or maybe you still have the original ticket, and you would rescan all of those documents back into the queue. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good questions. So you notice in our queue, we have the View tab, Scan Date and Time, the Scanned User's Name. Now you'll notice here under Status it says Checked Out. When you see under Status the words Checked Out, that just lets you know that someone is looking at that batch right now. They are in there trying to validate that batch as you are looking at the screen. If for any reason you wanted to override and open that batch so you could see it, you would simply click on the blue hyperlink under Validate Batch. It would send a message to the person, the user, who has it checked out right now. And it would say, there's another user that would like to see this batch. Would you relinquish control so they can see it? So if I were to click on this, whoever has this batch checked out in our training database would see a message that says, I want to look at it. And then they would have to relinquish control to allow me to check it out. Again, I can search by MTF, I can search by device name, I can search by number of pages. Last modified by, this is the last person, the last user that opened the batch. And this tells you the date and time that they opened it up. So we're going to work with this batch that ends in 1552. I'm going to hit the plus, which will open this up and give me a little bit more information about this batch. You'll notice that I can see the name of the patient, which is HAIMS 5. I can actually see the author of the document, the date of the visit, and that the status is on hold. So the status of this batch is that it's on hold. If I click this little TV you see on the left, it says preview. It simply pops up a box that would allow me to scroll through and look at the documents as a quick preview. So I'm going to close that out. And I'm going to...
Sir, I have another question on that. I also utilize that functionality on a batch that's checked out if I wanted to preview. So if I don't want to check it out since it's already being checked out by someone, do I have that functionality available where I could take a look inside of that batch as well?
That is another great question. So the student asked, on this batch right here, the one that ends in 1622, it is currently checked out. Now, if I click the preview, the little plus, you'll notice there are 3 TVs here. If I would like to preview what's inside each one, I do have the ability, without actually checking out the batch, to do a preview. As you can see, I clicked on the little TV, and I can see what's inside of that batch that they are working on right now. And there are 3 different TVs here. They are all for the same patient. If I widen, I can show you that this is an SF558. The author is John Holliday, and the date of the visit. You'll notice that there is a sensitive checkmark box right here. That lets me know that this document that is about to be imported into the HAIMS system is going to be imported as a break-the-glass sensitive document. And I will show you when we get inside where you can checkmark and make a document sensitive. So that's a very good question, and the answer is yes. I can still do a preview even though it has been checked out.
Thank you.
Good question. So now we are going to open up a batch and validate what we have scanned in. You simply left-click one time on Validate Batch. Now I will let you know that in our training database, after 5 minutes of use, the system may kick me out and I may have to come back in. But we'll see. So what do we see when we get inside the batch? There are 3 different panes. The first pane is the document list. The middle pane is the file and edit. And the third pane is our validation of metadata information. So starting from the left, if I had more than one TV, I could go previous and next, or I could simply just click on line 2 or 3 or 4. We'll talk about the closed batch at the end. You'll notice here it says patient name, HAIMS XXX5, and the current status of this batch is that it's on hold. In the middle is our file and edit tabs, and you'll see some icons. Next to these green arrows, you'll notice that there's a number 1. and it's not grayed out. That tells me, because it's not grayed out, that there is more than one page. So again, when you're doing your document preparation and you are scanning 5 or 10 or 25 pages into the validation queue, you need to know how many pages you scanned in, because this is where the validator will go in and make sure that they are all there. So in this example, we scanned 5 pages. And all 5 pages are there. If I want to go to page 2, I can just simply click on page 2, and it will take me to the second page. Or I could use my green arrow and go to the next page, and go to page 3, and I go to page 4, and then I go to page 5. So I'm going to go back to page 1, and we'll talk a little bit about these icons. The first icon you see is the floppy disk that says Save. If I make an edit, if I change something in the File Edit screen of the validation queue, I need to make sure that I save my changes by clicking on this disk right here. So if I were to rotate pages because they were upside down, if they were out of order, if I deleted some blank pages, I would want to save my changes prior to importing it into HAIMS. Again, we are in the bulk scan portion of HAIMS. What we are working with is not in the HAIMS application, not until we actually close this batch and it uploads into the HAIMS application. From here, when we're working inside the queue, we have the ability to make changes. Again, we can delete and start over. There are a lot of things that you can do. Again, as I mentioned, I might get kicked out. So I'm going to go back into the same batch. And here we are. We're working in the middle pane. So if you make changes, you need to save your changes. The second icon over is my zoom in. If I click it one time, you'll notice that it zooms in. If I click it again, it zooms in even more. If I want to zoom out, I simply click the zoom out. If I would like to specifically zoom on one specific portion of the page, I can click this magnifying glass. It gives me a plus, and then I draw a little box around it, and as you can see, it zoomed in so that I can read it. If after you've zoomed in and out, you want it to revert back to its original, you click on the best fit right here with the 4 green arrows, and that will put it back to its original. Let's look at the Edit tab. If I want to make edits, I simply click on the Edit tab. From here, you'll see that there are multiple functionalities that I can use. The first one, if I hover over, it looks like a little magic wand. It says that it will execute several cleanup functions at one time. Be very cautious to utilize this function button here, because it may do something to your document that you did not want it to do. Now that's okay if that happens, because if you make a change to a document and it's not the change that you wanted to occur, you simply click validation queue, you get back, which will take you out of the batch, and then you click right back on the batch and go back into the same batch, and any changes that you made, they are not saved. So as long as you do not click this save disk right here, as long as you have not made a save, any changes that occur, if you back out and come back in, it's like it never happened. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, so let's go back to our Edit tab. Again, if I click on the very first function, it executes several cleanup functions at once. If I scroll over, this will de-skew what I'm looking at. So if I scan it in a little crooked, it'll straighten it out for me. If for some reason I scan something in and I'm seeing 3 hole punches, I can remove the hole punches. If for some reason I scan something in and it has black border around it, I can click this icon and it will remove the black border. The next 2 remove spots. They are speckle and spot remove. Where you need to be very cautious on these is if, for example, you are scanning in an audiology report. On an audiology report, there are hundreds of little dots that are supposed to be there. If I click remove speckles and it removes half of those dots, that would be something I would not want to upload into HAIMS. So again, I would go click on the validation queue so I could back out and come back in, and it would be just like it had never happened. The next icon over is your invert your text. If the document was scanned in as a color document and you did not need to upload it into HAIMS as color, this icon will allow you to turn it back to black and white. Here I can flip pages horizontally, vertically, and of course I can rotate. So I'm going to rotate this just to demonstrate. So if I click rotate clockwise, you'll notice it changes the orientation of the document. If I do it again, now it's upside down. So if, for example, this had been scanned in upside down, you would come to the Edit tab and you'd simply rotate, rotate again, and once you've made your changes, you would click on Save, and now it's saved. Another thing to keep in mind, if you make a change and make a save, once you save your changes, you cannot undo what you just did. You cannot go back in time. You cannot go back to the validation queue, come back in, and expect it to be back in its original format. Once you hit save, it's saved forever. And if it's a mistake, then you would have to have your medical records administrator delete it from the queue, and you would start over and scan everything in again. The last icon you see is the rearrange or delete pages. If I click on this, this will allow me to grab the, let me go back in. That will allow me to grab the pages, the thumbnails, and drag them around. Maybe they are out of order. Maybe when I scanned it in, I didn't have very good doc preparation, and page 5 should really be page 2. Well, I can go to page 5, left click, and drag it and drop it as page 2. Let's say, for example, page 5 is a page that I don't need it. Maybe it's a duplicate. I simply highlight it. I hit the delete button on my keyboard, and it will put the red circle. If I hit done, it will delete that page, and it's gone forever. So I'm going to cancel out because I do not want to delete my pages. So those are the file and edit tabs. Again, be cautious on using the very first action item here, the action bar that says execute several cleanup functions at once. And if you need to rearrange or delete, you use this icon right here. Over to the right, we have the validation window. The validation window is the metadata fields, the 18 fields that we talked about. This is where you see what is required. As you can see, there are 4 required fields, just like from the PowerPoint presentation that we went over earlier. The patient's name, the author of the document, the date of the visit, and the document type. So in this example, I would not be able to upload this into the HAIMS application because I do not have the document type. And I can demonstrate that by changing my status by clicking on change. I will say import, meaning I want to change my status over here on the left. I want it to say import. And look what happened. I get an error message that says, correct the errors listed below. I did not fill out this required field. So I would need to then go in, choose whatever document type it is. Now if I click on import, it would change my status. So it's important that you verify that all of the information on the right matches all 5 pages in the middle. So if I were to scroll down on this document, you'll notice that it says HAIMS XXX5. It gives me the date of birth, and all of that information when I hover up is accurate, so it is the same. Now I do see form number 506, However, if I type in SF space 50, there is no 6 listed. But as I mentioned earlier, when we created the ticket, I can go in under document title and I can free type SF space 506 physical examination. If I were to save this and import this into HAIMS, this document, all 5 pages, would be searchable under SF 506 physical exam. It would also be searchable under assessment, by date, by author, and by the patient's name, of course. Down at the bottom, the DoD clinic. Maybe I want to add dermatology. And under my installation, maybe I type in 96 med group for Eglin. Again, fill out as many of these fields. The more you fill out, the easier it is to find. So I'm going to put this on hold for the time being because I do not want to import it yet. And now I've made changes so that the metadata on the right matches all 5 pages in the middle. So let's say, for example, that we created one ticket and we scanned all 5 pages in with just one fax cover sheet, one ticket. And page 5 was for a completely different patient. You would need to split those apart because, as you'll notice over on the right, it does not let me put in 2 different patients' names. I can only put one patient for the documents in the middle. So how do we split this one batch? Because you see I only have one line over here on the left. It says under document list I only have one. I need to split page 5 off so that I can change the metadata for that patient. You'll notice at the bottom there are these 2 little chevrons right here at the bottom of the screen. You simply click on that, which will then bring up the thumbnails of all 5 pages. If I highlight page 5 and I right-click, let me show you that again. If I highlight page 5 by left-clicking and then I right-click, it will allow me to split document or rearrange or delete. So obviously the rearrange or delete down here is the same as the rearrange or delete up here. So I want to split this off. I click on split. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you are going to use one ticket for multiple patients, which you can do, and you are going to start splitting documents once you are inside the queue, when you split a document, the metadata that is transferred over will mirror the metadata from the pages in front of it. So pages 1, 2, 3, and 4 show this metadata information on the right. So just remember that when you start splitting, it's going to carry over the same metadata for the pages in front of it. So I'm going to click split. It says, are you sure you'd like to split this? I say, yes, I do. Now you will notice over on the left side, I have 2 lines. I have line 1 and I have line 2. So if I click on line 2, in the middle, there will be 1 page. And I know that because if I click on File, I see the number 1 right here next to these green arrows, and it's grayed out. Now I know this isn't a very legible view. I can zoom in for you to try and see it, but it didn't scan in very clearly for us. So let's say, for example, that the patient name for this is not HAIMS XXX5 like it says over here under document list. I need to change the patient name. You come over to the right and you hit change. That will then allow me to hit the red X, click back inside the patient box, and maybe this is patient HAIMS 26. Now I've changed the patient's name, and the provider is not John Holliday. Let's say it was Jones George. The date is not from the 21st. in 2011. The date was from 2012, April 3rd. That was the date of the visit. The assessment, it is an assessment. We'll just say that it is a standard form 506. You'll notice right below that here it says mark as sensitive. This is where you mark a document as sensitive prior to importing it into HAIMS. So I'm going to say that this is a break the glass sensitive document, so I will check mark right here. Now it will be marked as sensitive. The clinic is the same and the installation is the same. Now that I've made my changes, I'm going to put it on hold. And you'll notice over on the left, the patient name changed from HAIMS XX5 to HAIMS XXX26. And I did that by clicking on the chevrons at the bottom and then right-clicking and splitting the documents apart. So if you would like to use one ticket for multiple patients, you are going to need to use the chevrons to split all of your documents because each patient's going to be different. Or you could create a specific ticket for each individual patient. So if it were 10 different patients, you would have 10 different tickets. When you scanned in to the queue, all 10 of those tickets, you would see 10 lines over here on the left, 1 through 10, for each ticket. And then you would validate each one line at a time, making sure that the information on the right side matches every page in the middle. There's one more thing that I'm going to show you. Let's say, for example, let me change the patient name back to HAIMS XXX5 for line 2. I want to go back and have HAIMS XXX5. So I hit search. I find my patient, make sure it's the correct patient, and I click on the hyperlink. And then again, I can hover over just to make sure that I chose the correct patient. Now, you'll notice the name on the left is not changed. That's because I have not changed the status. So I need to hit hold, and now the names are the same. So, what happens in the event that you have one ticket with 5 documents, and you scan it in? You should only have one line under document list. Well, sometimes there's an interruption in the scan. The documents will show up in the validation queue, but the system separated them for you on accident. We know that all 5 of these pages, on line 1, there'll be 4. You'll notice I hit the drop down here. There are 4 pages. And if I go to line 2, I'm only going to have 1 page. It's just this one. What if we need all 5 of those as one document? The system accidentally split them apart. We want to put them back together. How you do that is you start by clicking on line 1, and you're going to notice that there's a blue arrow. If I hover over the blue arrow, it says merge with next document. If I click merge, it says, would you like to delete the original after you merge it? Yes, I'm going to do that. It will now take line 1 and it will merge it with line 2. So now I have all 5 pages back together, as you can see here in the middle. So let me talk about that one more time. I can split documents by clicking on the chevrons, highlighting the page that I want to start to split, right-click and hit split, and it'll split my documents apart. When I split, all the metadata from the right side transfers over. So make sure you remember to go in and change the metadata information. If, however, I don't want to split, because, hold on, sorry. If for some reason, hold on. If for some reason I want to merge back together, I would have 2 lines over here on the left, or 3, and I simply highlight the line that I want to merge with the next line. There would be a blue arrow, and I click the blue arrow, and it will merge them together. So any questions so far on the splitting or the merging or the use of editing documents?
Yeah, I do have one. When you talk about splitting, do I only, let's say it is the page in the middle, when I highlight it, is it going to just take that page and split it away? Or how does that process work? So if I highlight, let's say this page is at page 3 of a 5-page document. And now I highlight it, I do that right-click. So like right now you have that page highlighted. If I do a right-click, is it going to just split that page away?
That is a very good question. Student asked, if I right-click a page in the middle, for example, page 3, and I right-click and hit split, what will happen? Let's just do it. We're gonna right-click. I'm going to say, yes, I'd like to split. And now it's going to give me 2 lines. And you'll notice if I go to line 1, the page that I highlighted and clicked on, it split that page and every page thereafter. So I only have 2 pages with line 1, and if I go to line 2, you'll notice that there are 3 pages. If I click in my drop-down, I have pages 1, 2, and 3. That's a very good question. And if I choose to merge these back together, I simply click back on line 1, and I would click on the blue arrow, which would then merge them back together. Very good question. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, so if I understand that then correctly, if I wanted to split a page, only one, let's say page 3 is the only one I want to split, then I would have to do the steps of rearranging it first and I guess moving it to the end in order for me to just split that one away. Is that correct?
Very observant of you. That is very correct. So the question was asked, if I just want to split page 3 by itself, how would I do it? Well, you would go to the Edit tab, just like she mentioned. I would click on Rearrange. I would take page 3, drag it to the end, hit Done, and now if I hit the chevrons, I could go to page 5, and I could right-click, and I could split, and then I just split that one single page that you wanted to split. That's a very good point. I'm glad that you brought that up. Thank you. Any other questions before we finish? We are nearly complete with the Med Records class. Okay, so let's go over the process one more time. We log in to Bulk Scan Network. We create our fax cover sheet or our ticket. The more information that we put on that fax cover sheet, the easier it is to validate, because everything from the ticket is what I see over here on the right side. So the more I fill out on the ticket, the less I fill out when I validate. Then I go into the validation queue. I make sure that I have all of my pages. I validate that all of the information in the middle matches everything on the right side. Once everything is accurate and correct, if I've made changes, don't forget to save your changes by hitting on the Save Disk here. Once everything is accurate, I then come over. Let me back out of the queue for just 1 second and start over. Here we go. So I'm going to click on my batch. I have validated every page in the middle. I go from page 1 to page 2 to page 3, all the way down to make sure I have all my pages, they're in order, and that they are legible. And then I make sure that the metadata information matches every page in the middle. And I change my status from hold. I'm going to change it to import. When I click on import, it's going to put the green ball with the white check mark. Once you see this, this is ready to be uploaded into HAIMS. If I click on close batch right here, it will import this batch into the HAIMS application. And I can do more than one line at a time. So in the example of, I did one ticket, 10 patients, and I split them. I split 9 times. So I have 10 lines over here on the left. I can work one line at a time and just change status for each line and pick import for each one as I go through. You'll notice on the right side it says reject. If you're trying to validate a batch and maybe there are just too many missing pages, and you decide, I'm just going to reject this batch. It's no good. I'm going to start over. I can simply click reject, which will then put the batch into the rejection queue. And remember what I mentioned earlier, only the medical records administrator can see what's in the rejected queue. And then, of course, on the delete, this allows me to delete certain pages from inside of the batch. However, I cannot, unless I'm an administrator, I cannot delete the entire batch itself. And that concludes the medical records bulk scanning portion of HAIMS. Are there any further questions or anything else that you would like me to show you again? Well, that's great. I hope that everybody understood what I went over. That's great. When you are finished working inside of the queue in the standalone mode, you want to simply log out by clicking on the Logout tab. It says, are you sure? You said yes. And because you have an open browser session going, you want to hit Close Window. And now you're out. I'd like to thank everyone for your participation. If there are no further questions, I will go ahead and stop our class.